Engineers Ireland membership delivers with our extensive online resource centre. Engage today and make the most of your Engineers Ireland membership. What happens when a nation's infrastructure ambitions outpace its engineering capacity?
So Ireland Inc., we have an amazing business plan for the world to invest in. We're just not the best in the world for coming together and selling that business plan. And that's what's happening at the moment.
Hi there, my name is Dusty Rhodes and you're welcome to Amplified, the Engineers Journal podcast. Today we're exploring how Ireland can overcome critical delivery challenges, from evolving procurement strategies to building inclusive teams. We'll be looking at the importance of staff well-being and the barriers that still exist for women in engineering, along with why visibility, well-being and collaboration matter more than ever. Our guest is a chartered engineer and one of the youngest ever Fellows of Engineers Ireland, with over 20 years of multidisciplinary experience plus a passion for people, policy and progress. It's a pleasure to welcome the Head of Strategic Procurement for Ireland at AECOM, Collette O'Shea. Colette, how are you?
Hi Dusty, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So listen, let's kick off and tell me what sparked your interest in this wonderful career of engineering we find ourselves in.
Well, I'm going to blame my dad. So it'll go right back to being a child. So my dad works in construction. He's a quantity surveyor, not an engineer, but we won't hold that against him. So he worked, I suppose, in construction my entire life. So I was always around it. My brother works in it as well. So that kind of mindset, and my poor mum had to listen to that at the dinner table every night. So it was that kind of problem solving, and both of them work in buildings. So it was always the iconic, so like Stephen's Green Shopping Centre. My dad worked in the Square in Tala and stuff like that. They did the structural steel. So I could always visualize it. And he was always really good at explaining how things go together. Now, his dad, my grandfather, was an engineer as well. So it's kind of in the family. So that's where it came from. I understood, and I think that's, as a woman, what helped me. I understood from a very early age what an engineer actually meant. And it wasn't digging holes and kind of maybe the dirty, cold vision that a lot of people have of being out on site. I could see that it was iconic buildings and I could see the output.
So you knew from a very early age what it was that you wanted to do, which is a blessing in life, I think.
I did, but I didn't.
All right. But engineering was one of the top ones anyway.
Yeah.
When you were in school then, did you have a problem with trying to get the subjects that you needed in order to progress onto engineering? And if you did, how did you get across? How did you get around the teachers?
Luckily, again, it was my parents. So my parents fought the school in terms of allowing me to study science subjects for my leaving cert. So I did the 3 science subjects: chemistry, biology and physics. But the school were very hesitant to let me do that. Even though the timetable allowed, they wanted me to do accountancy or home ec or, something else. And accountancy, like, they made me sit it for 2 or 3 weeks and I was just brain dead. I was like, I can't sit here. And I no offense to accountants, but it just didn't work with my brain. So luckily my parents fought the school, and also luckily that my parents could afford to send me to grinds for honours maths and applied maths, because the honours maths level in the school wasn't particularly great. There was 6 of us and all 6 of us went to the same grinds teacher, and applied maths wasn't offered whatsoever. So I suppose I was lucky that I had the support of my family, and my family had the resources to support me in what I wanted to do.
You also mentioned, Colette, about how being an engineer is more than digging holes. What do you mean by that when you're talking to people?
So for me, I suppose I describe myself as a creative person. So I write and saying and stuff like that, which is very important to me. And that's what has helped me in my engineering career, because it's all about solving problems. There's no project in the 20 plus years that I've worked on that's the same, maybe similar. So you need to be able to kind of apply knowledge, take what you've learned from one project and think about it in a creative space. So it's, if you're very much kind of like, well, no, these are the rules and I stick to the rules and I can't think outside that, you may struggle to be successful in engineering, because while there's rules in engineering, it's about applying them to the situation in front of you, which is different all the time. So for me, like that creative streak and that being able to kind of like think laterally as well as like straight down has helped hugely in that space.
Well, rules are there for a reason, aren't they? To be broken.
Well, not all in engineering. There's like safety issues that we have to work with. Keep people safe.
But you said that you like a challenge, and you got very involved in kind of water engineering, which is like one of the, if you're looking for problems, hello water. What attracted you to that side of engineering?
It was, I suppose, because I could see maybe how it was going to help and kind of improve things. So I love water as a person, so I'm attracted to it, and I love, like, I live close to the beach, and I love, you know, spending time near it. So it was that, I suppose, greater good, if you want to put it like that. And it also made sense to me. Like, I deal a lot, and I don't know whether it's a bit strange for an engineer, but on my senses and what makes logic to me. So understanding how water is treated, how it flows, and I worked in flooding for a number of years too. So how it does destruction and kind of countering that, but keeping it within the natural environment. So I was always conscious of all the projects that I was doing while we were like water treatment and wastewater treatment, while we're improving the environment. It was great to work to kind of maybe put in a cycle path or, you know, things like that, and improve the environment that we were building something quite hard and structured in at the same time. So while you're improving the environment that maybe people can't really see, you're also giving back a little bit and restoring the nature of it. So that side meant a huge amount to me.
That's kind of going over and above what the project is. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of like taking a step back and you're looking at it as a whole. And there's a certain amount of creativity in there, that I would say, or a bit of imagination. Do you think creativity is an important skill for engineers?
Yes, absolutely. Because you need to be able to take the knowledge that you learn and apply it differently. Because no matter what area you work in, like I specialized in water. I ended up doing some structures. I did some roads. You do some energy, and it's trying to connect the dots, and they're not the same dots on every project. So you need to be able to go, okay, that sounds like it was that, or it might connect to that, or we might be able to do, like on the energy space at the moment, you know, we might be able to use some of the processes that are running in treatment plants to generate energy to run the treatment plant, so therefore taking it off the grid. But it's kind of thinking that way and trying to apply ideas that you learn to the problems that are facing you. But it's not, and it sounds stupid because someone will go, it's the same treatment plant. It's like, it's not, it's slightly different. It's different. There is variances. It's not just one size fits all.
So you're kind of taking an engineering problem and you're looking for a solution, and you're also kind of saying, well, how can we make this better? That's very easy to say, to do that. Where do you get your creativity from? I mean, how do you keep your mind so open?
Just by, I suppose, reading new ideas and like spending a lot of time reading articles, talking to my colleagues and my friends. So I have a wide network of friends and colleagues across all the different areas. So just having a chat, like that coffee at lunchtime, or what are you working on? What are you doing? I'm doing this. I think we could do something together, but I don't know what. And sitting down and having those conversations and being open to learning. So lifelong learning for me is something that I drive continuously. And that, I think for any engineer, it needs to be part of your progression, because the world changes and the problems change. And you need to kind of, like, my learning is like chatting to people, seeing what other people are doing, certainly in a company like AECOM, looking worldwide and going, what are we doing in like Paraguay? That might be of use, or what are we doing in LA that might be of use in Dublin or something like that.
And do you back that, just being curious about what's going on elsewhere in the world in general and in engineering? Do you kind of combine that with like actual formal learning or getting extra qualifications?
Yeah. I'm the queen of getting extra
are you?
qualifications. Yeah.
Well, it seems to be working for you. So go on to tell me more.
So as well as my engineering degree, I have a master's in business-based project management. I have qualifications in law, commercial contracts, procurement law, and I'm an executive coach. So I have a coaching business as well as my engineering career. So like when I find something I'm interested in, I want to learn as much as I can. And if I'm going to do it, I'll do the best I can at it, but I need to slow down.
Has all of that extra effort in getting all of those extra qualifications on a score out of 10, how has it helped your career?
Probably 9 out of 10, if not 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a strategy behind it, and I've moved into contracts now. So I specialize in contracts. So that's all the law qualifications.
You were talking about when you're chatting to people. I found this, somebody told me about this one question and I said, you can't ask that. You can't ask people that. And they said, try it. So I did. And actually, do you know what? It's an amazing question for learning about people. I'm going to ask you that question now, okay? Complete stranger, you're at a drinks party, whatever, blah, blah. How are you do? What do you do? I do, blah, blah, blah. So listen, what's the big problem you're working on this week?
I suppose the big problem I'm working on or trying to help some of my clients with at the moment is what you mentioned at the start. It's how do we service a national development plan with the resources that we have in the country? And I think that's the hot topic at the moment. We're like one of the most ambitious national development plans in the world, and the funding and the drive to deliver it. But it's trying to find the resources, whether that's people, whether that's materials, whether it's time. That's what I'm working on at the moment.
Cool. Well, listen, let's get into that and chat about it, because I mentioned it in the introduction. Do you think Ireland Inc. really does have a problem where our infrastructure ambitions we don't have the engineering capacity for it?
I don't know if it's a problem. I think I prefer to think of it as a challenge, because there's lots of solutions to it and lots of organizations are working. So lots of our government organizations and infrastructure organizations are working to resolve it and are coming together and kind of delivering in a more programmatic way, which is, instead of, like, historically we looked at individual projects, or we were more inclined to look at individual projects and how we were going to deliver those. Now we're looking at, right, this client has X amount to spend. We have all these projects to do. How are we going to do it? So clients themselves are starting to pull together to kind of look at that. And that allows you to plan between projects, look and say, well, look, project A is the most critical. If we do that first, and then project B can come in and the resources can roll over, whether that's people. And then what's starting to happen, and it's the critical piece for me, is that it needs to roll up above the client organizations into like country. So Ireland Inc., as you say, has, like, we have an amazing, if we were a business, we have an amazing business plan for the world to invest in. We're just not the best in the world for coming together and selling that business plan. And that's what's happening at the moment. So the kind of introduction of the infrastructure section or department and deeper and things like that, it's approaching the country like a business and selling us. Because, like, if we can get people interested and get them, like, there's a huge portfolio of work to get invested in, and we need to get them to support our Indigenous kind of industry to keep growing and deliver.
So, Collette O'Shea, I have now made you Taoiseach. You're in charge of everything.
Yes.
What?
Another thing off my bucket list.
What do you change?
It's not so much what I would change. I would approach it as a business. I would write a business plan. So, and that's what's going on at the moment, but it's bringing all the organizations together who are doing really good work and approaching it as, like we do kind of in maybe a private business, where you have all your different sectors and your departments doing different work, but we all come together as a unit, as the company to sell and to kind of go out to the industry. So that's what I would do, kind of set and get the people who are the leaders and kind of the decision makers in those companies or those public bodies, and just write that business plan and then go out to the world, like go out and market it. Because, like, for any business, you're looking at the longevity of investment. So if you can go, right, well, here's 10 years and we guarantee there's funding and here's all the different projects across all the different sectors. Because very few companies will move and invest if there's only one sector. But like we have housing, we have commercial, we have schools, we have, everything, infrastructure, roads, buses. We have a full portfolio that would create a solid business plan for someone to invest in Ireland.
And the trick is getting all of those large bodies of people to all come together and agree on something. So it's not an easy thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because I suppose I worked with a number of those kind of senior people and they're all very progressive. It's time. All of us in the industry are so pushed for time, and it's trying to get time in people's diaries to sit and agree. I think that's one of the main struggles across the industry for everybody at the moment.
I would have to agree in my own industry as well. Let me get back onto procurement strategies, because you do advise people on that. What do you see as the most common pitfalls to avoid when it comes to procurement strategies?
Well, one of the common ones, and it goes across everything, is that we tend to keep doing what we've done before because it's safe. And we're talking about certainly the procurement strategies that I'm lucky enough to work in. You're talking about billions of euros. So people are very hesitant to kind of be the one that steps outside the box, because we're all aware of maybe the one project in the country who's in the news at the moment and not going so well. So we're working slowly to kind of get confidence, and some organisations have gotten their confidence of taking a slightly different route. One of the other things is our adversarial nature around contracts. And we need to work together in terms of trying to share risk under contracts rather than just transferring it and hoping for the best, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So we need to make the industry sustainable, and certainly in the infrastructure space, to make it attractive for companies, because we're up against the data center clients, we're up against huge big business and big pharma who treat it's more a relationship because they're not governed by, procurement law. So they can kind of do side deals, they can do handshakes and stuff like that. That's not how public procurement works. But if we don't share the risk properly, we end up in that adversarial battle, because the companies need to make money. If something wasn't clear, there's the argument over whose responsibility it is. And it's not always, the client's fault. But it just ends up in that kind of adversarial space. And I think to move forward, we need to kind of look at that a little bit.
We shall return to our podcast in just a few moments. But first, some news. The Engineers Ireland app is now available to download from both the Apple and Google Play stores. With it, you can book events, log your CPD, read articles, and always be in the know on what's coming up. To get it, simply search Engineers Ireland in the App Store to engage today and make the most of your Engineers Ireland membership. So let's talk about the engineering market then in general, because you're in quite a unique position to observe the Irish infrastructure landscape. Where do you see the engineering market heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it's going to, I suppose, bloom, if that's the right word. There's a lot of work has been going on in the last couple of years to kind of get projects aligned, get our major infrastructure projects off the ground. We're bringing in kind of expertise from the globe to help with those major projects. So the likes of Sean Sweeney, who's joined Metrolink in recent times. We're looking outside the box. We're applying that creativity to, instead of just doing what we're doing within the box of Ireland, we're bringing it in. So I think we'll see the fruits of that. And also that push with the infrastructure department and stuff like that to kind of grow and sell ourselves. So I think a lot of the blocks that are there at the moment, we'll see them slowly move. Now, the infrastructure space is a slow moving animal. It's never going to be overnight. It's never going to be quick. But I think we'll see the roadblocks moving and progress happening in the next couple of years. It's a very exciting time to work in infrastructure because there's so much going on.
It can be a little bit frustrating when it's moving that slowly, but it also means that it's not necessarily affected as much as other areas of life by what might be going on elsewhere in the world, shall we say. But also it's very reliant on, I like looking at slow moving things, all right, because in radio and with podcasting, every week or every month, or certainly in radio every 3 months, you get your radio ratings in. We all hear about it in the news and everybody's number one and it's great, all right? But for a presenter, it's like getting your Leaving Cert results every 3 months. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, you did great. Uh-oh, hang on a minute. No, you're down. Do you know what I mean? It's a nightmare. But what I always kind of looked at, numbers and stuff like that, was to look at the trend. Do you know what I mean? So like you might be down a little bit this time, up a little bit the next time, but are you overall moving upward is always the thing. So when I'm talking about slow moving things like infrastructure and stuff like that, you're also able to see trends because you're looking at things over the last 2-3 years. You're looking ahead the next 5-10 years. What trends or technologies do you think are going to, shall I say, shake up, be radical about it, the engineering practice in Ireland?
Well, I think the most radical one is going to be AI. So we're seeing that coming into a lot of things at the moment, and kind of that kind of space. It's really, I suppose, worrying in some respects because a lot of people are worried it's going to take their jobs. Am I going to be replaced? Am I going to... But like what we're saying is that's not, like, it's augmenting, it's helping grow those resources and that get rid of that resource constraint that we've been talking about. But it also is a computer. So you need to check what comes out of it. And for me, it's like in 20 years, I've seen a number of things. Like email was just about being introduced when I started work. So like things have progressed. There's been a number of technology progressions, even in my career. And I just see this as the next one. Like the last big one was like BIM, building information modeling and stuff like that. This is just kind of the next step in that. And it's helping us do our jobs more efficiently and also safer. So the introduction of AI into the likes of tunneling, where people don't necessarily have to go into the tunnel as much, where we can do things like in a safer method so that people can go home safely. You know, I think it, like for me, while I'm nervous of it because I don't know it, I think it's a great tool for progression.
Can I ask you about that tunnel? Are you able to tell me more about that example?
A little bit. I don't know how huge it was. Again, it was one of my evening lectures that I attended.
Ah, cool. Tell us what you remember then. Tell us what you remember.
So what hopefully I don't remember this wrong, but what they were saying is that on a tunneling machine, like technology has progressed a huge amount where a lot of it is done remotely. But there are still certain areas where people have to go check or go do a certain amount of information. But what they're using is they can take the information that's now been read back. So the hardness of the rock, the soft spots, the kind of geotechnical information. Using AI, they can determine, okay, well, if we move like slightly this way, or if we reduce the speed on this head slightly, it won't get stuck, or it'll move, the productivity will keep going. So it's that analysis that can be done very quickly and to stop kind of issues with the head getting stuck or hitting something that's going to slow down productivity. So I may have gotten hopefully. No,
but I get the gist of the example that you mean. But that is that's a real world implementation of AI, and it actually helped. And that these things, the one thing I constantly hear about AI is you look at something that AI is doing, and you kind of that's not great. But what you have to remember is that's the worst AI will ever be. It's just constantly improving. It's
just like, and like it's huge for us in the industry when you're trying to analyze huge volumes of data. So traffic data would be the other thing. So like our roads, and people always think they're speed traps, but I don't know if you're driving along the road and you see two little cables going across the carriageway, that's traffic counts. So just counting traffic, but taking information like that or off cameras that are doing the same, so that you can model and say, well, that junction, we need to change the traffic light signal because that particular road keeps getting stuck for no particular reason and the other one is quiet. It's things like that you don't see going on that AI is helping us with.
Imagine applying your brain to try and figure that out across a city like Dublin, which is not the biggest city in the world. It's not small, but it melts your brain. Getting away from AI, but another thing that is affecting our working life is we had COVID and everybody's working from home. And now there's this whole return to the office mandate that seems to be kind of not going down too well. Do you think it's hampering the industry's ability to deliver the National Development Plan?
I think so. I don't think it's, I suppose in AECOM, what we've done is we have quite a flexibility around it. So our focus is very much on creating the community and the team culture and stuff like that, rather than you must be in the office 3 days a week for no particular reason. And I see a lot of my friends working in organizations, either in engineering or otherwise, where they're getting quite annoyed at having to go in for no reason. And I know myself, some days I go in, I'm like, I'm sitting here in a meeting room on team calls all day. I might as well be at home because all I'm doing is getting to wave at my team as I run to the loo or something. So I think there needs to be, again, we need to think outside the box. During COVID and certainly the years afterwards, our productivity did increase and our ways of working got better. And, there are certain things that we need to work on, the connectivity. But in terms of the actual output, I would imagine if you did a kind of a study now on the productivity versus what it was in maybe just after COVID, as kind of we got out of the worst of it, I would say our productivity has dropped probably by 20%.
And is that because people are returning to the office, or is that because people are kind of more used to the idea of working from home now?
I think you're more used to working from home, but also if I'm in the office, I'm concentrating maybe in the evenings because I have a class or I have to get home for my kids or something like that. So I'm going, right, I have to leave at a certain time because I have travel in between that I need to, it might be a commute of an hour that I need to get home. Well, if I'm at home, I can go, all right, well, I don't need to be wherever until 6 o'clock. So I can work that's only 10 minutes up the road. I can work until 5:45.
Okay. Now, that brings up another thing, because then you're overworking, all right? The commute is actually a space for your brain to go, oh, okay, all right. Do you think then when you're looking at that much quality working bunched into a day, that people will experience burnout?
I do think so. And you need to be very careful in terms of boundary setting and things like that. I've experienced burnout myself. And I'm very I try to be, I wouldn't say I'm very good at it because it's still a skill that you have to learn, but it's about recognizing and watching yourself and making sure you're taking lunch. Just because I work an extra half hour, a lot of the times you'll find people working on the train on the way home anyway. So the commute isn't actually a break. It's just more of a hassle to figure out how to get from the office to the train, to turn back on the laptop or the phone, to check emails or reply. A lot of the times you'll find people doing Teams calls. Oh, I'll call you on the train on the way home.
I hate people who do that, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean.
We need to work, it's a personal thing. And having gone through it, for me, it's very much a personal skill of managing my time and putting in boundaries. But it also needs to be supported by the organisation, because if you're working with an organisation who doesn't understand that you need to look after yourself, then that becomes very, very stressful.
I want to ask you about that in a second. But first, tell me, you've been through burnout. How did you know you were burning out?
I'll be honest and say I didn't. It took my family and friends probably 2 years to get me to realize it. And I was in a very, very bad way when I kind of finally listened to them. Because I'm, I suppose, a very driven person, very ambitious. I suppose capable. I was I just keep going. I know what I'm doing. I can do this. And I was doing it. It wasn't that I was failing at anything. But I went from having, I suppose, being able to see my friends in the evening. I used to run and, do 5Ks and stuff at the time, to working maybe 60, 70 hours a week to make something successful that I was very passionate about. But I lost myself in the process. And I talk about it in terms of having two Colettes now. There's professional Colette and there's Colette. And I lost Colette and professional Colette took over completely, which for 2.5 years is not something that's sustainable.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back and made you realise that you were burnt out?
It was actually COVID. So having the headspace in COVID to realise that I was just so exhausted. And all of a sudden, I remember at the beginning of COVID, everyone was making an effort of like friends we were doing Zoom parties and everything. And I had moved house just before, like 6 months before COVID. I lived on the south side for 20 plus years with all my friends, and I moved to the north side and left them going, it's only a half an hour drive. I'll be grand. And then I went for 6 months not seeing somebody that I knew in person because of all the restrictions. So it was that headspace and that realization that I'm not just my work. I'm good at my work, but it's that connection and that kind of person to person stuff that I want.
So you've mentioned that to combat the burnout, realizing it was one thing, and then having your professional hat and your personal hat, and then doing simple things like, making sure that you have time for lunch or getting some exercise, whatever happens to be. All of these things combat it. But how does it work with an employer where all of a sudden you're doing 70 hours a week and now you're going in and go, no, it's all new Colette now. I only do 38. From an employer's point of view, do you know what I mean? How does that work?
Well, I suppose it's depending on the organization, and I can only maybe speak about it from where I am today. So with the company I'm with AECOM at the moment, so we have a freedom to grow policy, which was one of the things that attracted me. And it was in place, and I knew it was in place before COVID, and I knew about it because certain friends worked in AECOM, so I knew they were using it. But that allows you to it's focused on getting your work done whenever it suits you and suits your clients. So like on a Friday morning, I do a creative writing class or group, and I don't take time off. It's a half a day, but I work it within the rest of my week. And there's no pressure or kind of going, oh, why isn't it just accepted? I don't work Friday mornings. And lots kind of having structures like that you can kind of go, you know what, it's acceptable. It's actually set out in policy, so I don't have to stress about it. And seeing people do it. So I try and act as an example within the organization and talk about what I do. And other people talk about it. One of our directors, energy leads in the UK, does like base jumping and stuff like that. And he'll put up pictures that it was a gorgeous afternoon and I needed a break. I'm, after going off for a couple of hours and doing my thing. And that's celebrated. So we very much celebrate bringing your whole self and taking a break. And you'll get called out. Like I have a great team who'll tell me, Colette, you're exhausted, you've been working, we saw email from you, you need to turn off. It's that ethos.
Yeah. For somebody who's listening and they're feeling stressed at work and feeling like, oh God, there's nothing I can do about it. This is quite common, especially with human resources, where there are rules and regulations about things that are available. You said that you had looked into the regulations in your own place and you availed of it. For somebody who's kind of sitting there and stressing, I can't read them, or I don't feel comfortable, or if I go in, they're going to say no. What advice would you give to them about raising that issue or just asking for help?
I think the hardest thing is asking for help. And it's something that all the stuff I've gone through, I still sometimes struggle. The hardest part is going and sitting with somebody and going, this doesn't feel right. I'm stressed. I can't do it. I feel I need support. I suppose the best advice is finding somebody that you can trust and somebody you feel comfortable, and acknowledging that it's a very vulnerable situation that you're putting yourself into. So it will feel scary. It will feel, certainly from a professional side, I always felt like I'm making a mistake. This is going to impact me. They're going to think I'm not capable of my job. But one of the main things that I learned from like studying burnout and getting over it was having it and experiencing it was the complete opposite of failing at my job. It was because you're kind of outperforming, you're doing a huge amount. So it's not failure. It feels like it. And your brain tells you because you're not getting to everything that you want to do. But it's far from it. It's the complete opposite in my experience. So it's trying to have that vulnerability and speaking to somebody like in my coaching and stuff like that, and through the work I do with women in engineering in Engineers Ireland, Like I have people just like contacting me looking for that advice so I can advocate on their behalf if they want. Some people I'll coach them through the conversation and just help them have, what's words, how can I say it? And just a lot of the time it's a sounding board, and it's the same for myself, kind of going, I'm going to do this. Does this sound, or what do I do? Or how do I say this? So there's lots of resources out there that can help, and you can have that conversation before you have the conversation with your employer, if that helps.
Let me just ask you very briefly on women in engineering. Despite all the progress that we have in 2025 as we're speaking, what barriers do you still see facing women who are entering or even staying in the profession?
A lot of it is there's still surprisingly a lot of old mindset out there that, and again, it comes down to kind of breaking barriers and doing things kind of differently. So in the industry in general, there's a lot of progress, but when it comes to kind of addressing, like we organize conferences and things like that, and you get barriers where, why would you put all the women in the same room? It's like, because we actually want to talk, and you're very welcome as a man to come. We would love if you did, and we try very much to have balance, but it's that kind of perception that it's some kind of secret society. And while it would be nice if that was the case, but like the reason why I suppose we started that and kind of set up and it's still going is to create that network, because a lot of us either work in industries or in companies where there might be only 3 or 4 women in the company, or else some of them, certainly like there's a number of members who work in the likes of manufacturing and the very heavy male dominated ones, and they can be the only woman there. So like it's creating that network, and it's trying to break down the barriers. Like we can't do this, we can't change things without the guys. So it's not a them versus us. It's like we're trying to gather our thoughts to communicate it, and we're not trying to do anything. And like if you talk to any woman, nobody wants a job just because she's a woman. It's like, those quotas and stuff like that, that's not what we're fighting for, but we're just trying to raise awareness and just kind of, bring that to the fore.
And it's like you have said all through our chat today, it's getting all the parties who are involved in whatever happens to be to come together and work together. We're not all individual little camps. That doesn't serve anybody. It's when we come together, we can do amazing things. A lot of engineers who listen to the podcast are people who are thinking about their future and they want to progress with their career or maybe break out and start their own firm or stuff like that. For engineers who are starting out or looking to progress, where do you see opportunity?
Well, just in the industry in general. So the main growth in the industry, like a lot of it is in the energy space at the moment. And there's some really interesting kind of initiatives around, alternative fuel sources like hydrogen and things like that. You see the growth of the solar farms. So it's looking at spaces and it's finding what you're interested in. So I suppose in my coaching, what I always try and get people to understand is you'll burn out very quickly if you're working on something that's not aligned with your values and not aligned with kind of who you are. So if I'm chasing money and I'm going, right, I'm going to be CEO just because I want to get salary, that's fine if that's your ultimate driver and that aligns with who you are. But a lot of people aren't, again, me personally, that's not my ultimate driver. We want to be financially secure, of course, but not, I don't need to be mega rich. But it's finding what aligns with you. So whether that's energy, whether it's, some people go back and do lecturing and teaching because they find that that's what gives them joy. And that's what gives them purpose in the morning. So for me, it's finding that. And that's, I suppose, in my career, what I've worked through in the different steps. And that's how I've ended up in kind of the legal law side of it. And it's finding that bit that you're doing kind of on a day. You might do it in 5 minutes in a day going, oh my God, that was just so much fun. And then you try and expand that. And it's trying to work to expand that. And there's nothing wrong with saying what you want. So employers, and as a team lead, if someone comes to me and go, I really want to do X, I'd really love to try it. First thing is like, absolutely. But it might take me time to find something. So just hang on and give me a bit of time. I don't have a mega project in hydrogen to throw you onto immediately. But people forget and are afraid to tell their managers what they're actually interested in. And my view is, and I tell my team the whole time, it's like, I'm not a mind reader. Unless you tell me, I can't align it. And there's so many opportunities that end up on my desk that if I know that, Joe wants to work on this or Gabby wants to work on that, when they do arrive, I can make them align. But if I don't know, I will just go, oh no, well, I'll just pick, Mary instead, because I don't know what anybody wants to do.
For people who are listening, kind of going, that's interesting, I can tell you with my own career, that is amazing advice. And I have done it and it has worked. And it was years ago and somebody said, well, if you want to do such and such, tell the people above you, that's where I want to go. Amazing advice, Colette. Now, to wrap up, a hard question. And it's not going to be, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? But it's similar.
On a beach in the Bahamas.
Here it is. If you had a magic wand to fix one challenge in engineering tomorrow, what would it be?
One of the things that I would love to fix, because it's something that happened to me really early in my career, and it's something I've tried to tried to live up to, is when I was like a very young engineer, about 3 years experience, I majorly messed up. And to the point where my company got a letter from the government. So major mess up. But my director and company at the time didn't, like, I remember like it happening and being terrified. I was like going to get fired and everything. But I remember being sat down by the managing director at the time, Des Barry, and he's like, you can make any mistake once and we will help you and we will learn from it. But if you make the same mistake twice and don't learn, we'll have an issue. So that gave me such freedom. Now, I took a lot of responsibility, and kind of made sure I was doing things right. But it also gave me a lot of freedom to kind of learn. And once I had a solid, logical reason for why I did something. And it also helped me think things out, because you'd sit down with your line manager and explain why I'm doing this because X, Y, and Z. So that, as a young engineer, helped me kind of grow in my confidence and grow in my space and take ownership for my decisions while also being supported. And I would love for people to have that experience. I would love for that to be kind of the norm in the industry, because as we're working, we described engineering as a creative space. Like, we need to try and fail, because if we keep getting told, like children, you don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that, we never learn why. And the why as an engineer is a fundamental of who we are. So we need to kind of create that space for people to thrive. And that's how we'll get more people into the industry. That's how we'll get more people to stay and be engaged and progress.
That is not just a great thing to think about, but that is a brilliant summary of almost everything we've been talking about in the podcast. And it's just genius. If you would like to find out more about Colette and some of the topics we spoke about today, you'll find notes and link details in the description area of this podcast. But for now, Collette O'Shea, Head of Strategic Procurement for Ireland for AECOM, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Dusty. I enjoyed it.
If you enjoyed our podcast today, do share with a friend in the business. Just tell them to search for Engineers Ireland in their podcast player. The podcast is produced by justpod.io for Engineers Ireland. For advanced episodes and more information on career development opportunities, there are libraries of information on our website at engineersireland.ie. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, thank you for listening. Engineers Ireland membership delivers with access to the exclusive EBSCO library. Engage today and make the most of your Engineers Ireland membership.